And now for Joe Burrow, who won the Heisman Trophy. You should know some things about Joe and his family as we celebrate together his accomplishments. Joe Burrow's dad, Jimmy, played defensive back at Nebraska. He was selected in the 8th round of the 1976 NFL Draft. After 5 years in the Canadian Football League and 3 Grey Cups to show for it, he decided to coach defense. He coordinated that side of the ball in 1981 at Washington State. He made stops at Nebraska, North Dakota State, Iowa State, and Ohio over his career. He only retired last year. Saw him necking with Joe's mom, the SEC championship game. Joe's brother, Jamie, played middle linebacker for the 2001 Nebraska Huskers. He was a member of the squad that hustled to 11-2 and lost the national title 37-14 to Miami. His brother Dan walked on at Nebraska at safety. But Joe, he's more talented than Jimmy, Jamie, and Dan to let them tell it. Just check out these anecdotes ESPN's Mark Schlabach reported. When Joe was about 2.5 years old, Jimmy taught him how to ride a bike on the artificial turf at Nebraska. He fell down once, he got back up. He did not fall again. When Joe started playing flag football when he was about 6, Jimmy asked one of the Cornhuskers video assistants to film his games. He showed the tapes to Joel's older brothers. Jamie remembers his brother dropping 40-yard bombs and having to ask his dad if that was normal. No, it's not. When Joe was tall enough to dunk a basketball, he sent cell phone videos of himself doing it to his older brothers. They observed his friend was throwing the ball right over the rim, and it was more like a tip-in than a dunk, so Jamie and Dan did what older brothers like to do. They teased Joe and told him his dunks were not authentic. A few weeks later, when they attended one of his games just before Christmas, Joe stole the ball at midcourt and threw down a tomahawk dunk. Call him Billy Hoyle. Burrow played on a travel AAU basketball team when he was 9. During one state tournament in Columbus, Burrow's team was trailing by 8 points with about 30 seconds left to go. You would have been right to think the game was over, but Joe took over, scoring 9 consecutive points, including 7 straight foul shots, to lead his team to an improbable comeback. The other team kept fouling him, and he kept making shots. The coach of Joe's AAU team is a fella named Tom Vanderven. He is a professor at Ohio University, and he studied crimes and the actors in them for a living. He observed in Joe the qualities we find in our first responders. He said, Joe's pulse doesn't change, no matter the situation he finds himself in. He could be mowing the lawn or pulling people from a fire, and his pulse would probably stay about the same. Unlike the kind of men who end up leading Power 5 programs at quarterback, Joe didn't play at a high school power. Athens High had made the playoffs just twice until Joe showed up and started as a sophomore. By the end of his career, they'd won 37 games. He threw for over 4,500 yards with 63 touchdowns as a senior. It was actually Texas coach Tom Herman who brought Joe to Urban Meyer, then the head coach at Ohio State, when Herman was offensive coordinator at Ohio State. He told Meyer, I've found your next Alex Smith. But he wouldn't be that, not for Meyer. When Joe arrived at Ohio State, he backed up J.T. Barrett, then broke his hand and decided to grad transfer as the QB derby with future first-round pick Dwayne Haskins was really starting to heat up. Transfer to LSU. Started right away, and the Tigers went 10-3. Now, in 2019, Joe has been ridiculously good in Steve Ensminger's offense. He's completed nearly 78% of his passes for over 4,000 yards. He leads the country in touchdowns, or is tied for with 51 total, and 4,700 yards in total offense, and he's been amazing. The worst game he's played so far is 42-7 shellacking of Utah State, where he completed 71.4% of his passes for 344 yards, 5 tutties, and a pick. The best game, for me, it's 20-24 for 293 and 3 tutties against undefeated and then top 10 Florida. That's an 87.5% completion rate. Yeah, that'll work. He took out Alabama while Tua was still on the field, dropped 50 on Texas A&M, and then took apart Georgia and the best defense in the country with 349 yards through the air, 4 tutties, in a vintage SEC championship win. His road has led him from the Buckeyes to the boot, and now he has the Stiff Arm Award. I'd add to this, Joe Burrow is an example of what I tell most people and what I would tell any child that wants to achieve these heights. Your swagger comes from your story, the way that you own who you are, the way that you walk and talk, being yourself. It's a difficult thing to transition from a place like Ohio State to LSU and take over at an SEC school that is one of the powers. It's even more difficult to have people look you in the eye and tell you you're not that good and continue to believe you're more than just not that good. You're absolutely special. Congratulations, Joe Burrow. You are the 2019 Heisman Trophy winner, and your swagger matches your story. Deuces.